50 years had passed since the Great Subjugation, the day when 12 alien species had joined together to crush humanity's dreams of reaching the stars. Earth was no longer the proud blue marble it once was. Cities lay in ruins, rebuilt under alien eyes. The population had dropped from 8 billion to just 3 billion people. Every human lived under strict rules about food, water, and energy. Commander Kim Tae-ho pressed his face against the cold glass of Europa Mining Station 7. Below him, massive machines carved through the ice like hungry beasts. Once he had commanded a destroyer ship that could travel between planets. Now he watched over mining workers who dug ice for alien masters. The aliens barely looked at humans anymore. To them, people were just tools that could think and work. Nothing more than smart animals who could operate machinery. The hegemony had won completely. They had taken away Earth's weapons, destroyed the space fleet, and made sure humans could never leave their own solar system again. "Commander, we found something strange in Sector 12, said Lee Sora as she rushed into his office. Her voice shook with excitement. Tae-ho had not heard that tone from any human in decades. Hope had been beaten out of most people long ago. Tae-ho followed Sora down to the mining tunnels. The air was thick and cold. Their boots echoed on metal walkways as they went deeper into Europa's frozen heart. The mining laser had been cutting through ice when it hit something that should not exist. There, buried in ice that was millions of years old, lay the wreckage of a starship. But this was not human or alien technology. The metal was black and smooth, covered in symbols that looked like flowing water frozen in time. The ship was massive, easily the size of a city block. "What is it?" Tae-ho whispered. "We think it belongs to the architects," Sora replied. "The race that disappeared from the galaxy millions of years ago. Nobody knows what happened to them. They just vanished, leaving behind empty cities and ruins." Tae-ho felt his heart beating faster. The architects were legend. Every species in the galaxy knew stories about them. They had built incredible cities and traveled between stars when most races were still learning to make fire. Then one day they were gone. No bodies, no explanation, just empty worlds and mysterious ruins. The mining team had already cut a hole into the ship's hull. Inside, blue lights flickered weakly. The air was stale but breathable. Tae-ho and Sora crawled through twisted metal corridors until they reached what looked like the ship's bridge. In the center of the room stood a pillar made of crystal. It pulsed with soft light, like a heartbeat. When Sora touched it, the room came alive. Holographic displays filled the air, showing star maps, technical drawings, and symbols that hurt to look at directly. "My God," Sora breathed. "These are weapon designs, energy sources, ship blueprints, everything the architects knew about war and technology." Tae-ho stared at the floating images. Some showed weapons that could destroy entire fleets. Others displayed power sources that could fuel a city for 1,000 years. The star maps revealed hidden pathways between distant galaxies and secret facilities scattered across space. "This is impossible," he said. "Why would they leave this here? Why bury it in ice on Europa?" Sora was already copying the data onto portable drives. Maybe they knew something was coming. Maybe they hid these gifts for whoever would find them later, for species that would need them. As they worked, Tae-ho felt something he had not experienced in 50 years. Hope. Real, burning hope that made his hands shake and his vision blur. The hegemony had crushed humanity once. They had taken away Earth's children and scattered them across mining stations and work camps. They had made humans into slaves who could not even dream of freedom. But they had made one mistake. They had left humanity alive. "Sora," he said quietly, "how many of our people are still out there? Former military, scientists, engineers who remember what we used to be?" She looked up from the data crystals. "Hundreds, maybe thousands. They're spread across the asteroid belt, the outer planets, the moon colonies. Most of them are waiting for something. Anything." Tae-ho nodded slowly. The architect ship had been waiting in the ice for millions of years, waiting for the right moment, waiting for the right species to find it, waiting for people desperate enough and angry enough to use what they discovered. "Contact them," he said. All of them. Use the old military codes. Tell them we found something that changes everything. What do we call ourselves? Sora asked. Teho looked at the blue lights pulsing in the crystal pillar. Like fire. Like life returning to something that had been dead for too long. The Phoenix Collective, he said. Because we're going to rise from the ashes of what they did to us. And this time, we're bringing fire. Outside, Europa's ice continued to crack and shift. But deep below, in the buried ship of an ancient race, humanity had found its salvation. The hegemony had broken them once. They would not get a second chance. 6 months after finding the architect's ship, Teho had quietly reached out to humans across the solar system. Former soldiers, scientists, and engineers who had never truly accepted defeat. They called themselves the Phoenix Collective, and they worked from hidden bases in the asteroid belt where alien eyes could not see them. Dr. Park Min-soo floated in zero gravity inside Asteroid Base Alpha, studying holographic displays that showed architect technology. Before the war, he had been Korea's top physicist. Now he lived in a converted mining station, surviving on recycled air and processed food. But his eyes burned with the same fire that had driven him to unlock the secrets of the universe. The power source is incredible, he told the group of 20 humans floating around him. One architect energy core could power all of Earth for 100 years. But their weapons technology is even more amazing. They found ways to use stars themselves as weapons. Captain Choi Hye-jin pushed off from a wall to drift closer to the display. She had once led fighter squadrons against impossible odds, watching her pilots die one by one as the hegemony overwhelmed them. Her face was scarred from the last battle over Mars, but her hands were steady as she pointed at the weapon designs. How long to build ships using this technology? She asked. That's the problem, Park replied. We need materials, rare metals, energy crystals, and manufacturing equipment. The aliens monitor everything on Earth and the major colonies. Lee So-ra had been working on this problem for weeks. She had spent her days running mining operations while secretly mapping every resource depot and supply route in the outer system. The asteroids have everything we need, she said. Metals, rare elements, even some materials the hegemony doesn't know about. And they don't watch the belt carefully. Too many rocks, too spread out. The plan was dangerous but simple. Human workers across the solar system would slowly steal materials from their jobs. A piece of rare metal here, a power cell there, computer, components that were listed as broken but actually worked fine. The thefts would be small enough to avoid detection, but large enough to build something extraordinary. Within 3 months, they had established 6 hidden bases throughout the asteroid belt. Each base looked like an abandoned mining station from the outside. Inside, they hummed with activity as humans worked around the clock to build their secret fleet. The biggest breakthrough came when Park's team cracked the architect data on something called stellar cascade technology. The aliens had weapons that could destroy cities. The architects had learned to turn entire stars into directed energy beams that could reach across space to hit targets light years away. It's like turning the sun into a sniper rifle, Park explained to Teho during one of their secret meetings. But instead of bullets, it fires the raw power of nuclear fusion. A single shot could vaporize a fleet. Teho stared at the technical drawings floating between them. The weapon was beautiful and terrifying. How long to build one? 6 months for a prototype, a year for something we can actually use in battle. But Teho, if we're wrong about this technology, if we make a mistake, we could accidentally destroy our own solar system. And if we do nothing, Teho replied, we stay slaves forever. The work continued in secret. Hye-jin coordinated the construction of their first real warship, a destroyer they called Phoenix 1. It was smaller than the old Earth Defense Force, ships but packed with architect technology that made it deadlier than anything the hegemony had ever seen. The ship's hull was made from metals that could repair themselves. Its shields could absorb enemy fire and redirect it back at attackers. Most importantly, it carried a miniaturized stellar cascade weapon that could tap into the power of nearby stars. It's beautiful, Hye-jin whispered as she floated in the construction bay watching robots weld the final pieces into place. The ship was sleek and black, like a piece of space itself given form and purpose. But building ships was only part of the plan. Sora had been studying the architect star maps, discovering hidden routes between star systems and secret facilities scattered across the galaxy. They didn't just disappear, she told the group. They prepared. They left tools and weapons hidden everywhere, waiting for someone to find them. The hegemony remained completely unaware of what was happening in the asteroid belt. To them, humans were broken creatures who spent their days digging ice and mining rocks. The aliens had grown lazy and comfortable in their victory. They no longer sent patrol ships to check the outer system. They had decided that humanity was no longer a threat. This was their first mistake. As Phoenix 1 prepared for its maiden voyage, Tejo stood in the observation deck of Base Alpha, looking out at the stars that had once been forbidden to his people. In the distance, he could see the lights of other construction sites where more ships were taking shape. 50 years ago they crushed us, he said to Sora, who had joined him at the window. They thought they had won forever. What they didn't understand, Sora replied, is that you can't kill the human spirit. You can break our bodies, destroy our cities, scatter us across space. But as long as one human survives, we'll find a way to fight back. Below them, Phoenix 1's engines fired for the first time, bathing the asteroid in blue light. The ship that would carry humanity's revenge was ready for war. The first strike came without warning on a Tuesday morning. Hegemony Patrol Fleet 7 was conducting routine inspections near Jupiter when they simply vanished. 12 alien warships, and their crews disappeared in a flash of blue light, leaving nothing behind but scattered debris and confusion. Admiral Vextar of the Hegemony Third Fleet stared at his tactical display in disbelief. The patrol ships had been there one moment, sending regular status reports. The next moment, empty space, no distress signals, no battle reports, no explanation. Impossible, he clicked in his native tongue. Human technology cannot produce such destruction. They have no weapons, no ships, no military capability. But the evidence floated before him in the vacuum of space. Twisted metal that had once been proud warships. Energy readings that showed weapons far beyond anything humans should possess. The impossible had happened. Tejo watched the alien response from his command ship, Phoenix 1, hidden in the shadow of Ceres. The ship's stealth systems made it invisible to hegemony sensors, allowing him to observe their enemy's panic firsthand. Around him, the bridge crew worked quietly, their faces calm despite the magnitude of what they had just accomplished. First blood to humanity, Heejin reported, from her fighter squadron. The patrol fleet never knew what hit them. Our stellar cascade weapons worked perfectly. Good, Tejo replied. Now comes the real test. The hegemony's response was swift and overwhelming. Within hours, a massive armada began assembling from bases across the solar system. 300 warships, the largest fleet ever sent against a single target. They came from Mars orbit, from the Jupiter stations, from hidden bases in the outer planets, all converging on Earth like an angry swarm. The alien commanders were certain this would end quickly. Humans had somehow acquired new weapons, but they were still trapped in their home system, still limited to a handful of ships, still the same broken species that had surrendered 50 years ago. This was their second mistake. Let them come to Earth, Tejo told his officers as they watched the alien fleet approach. They'll find exactly what we want them to find. The Phoenix Collective had spent months preparing for this moment. While building their secret fleet, they had also been evacuating key personnel from Earth and the inner colonies. Scientists, engineers, military leaders, and their families had quietly disappeared into the asteroid belt and beyond, using architect star maps to reach hidden bases throughout the galaxy. As the hegemony focused all their attention on Earth, expecting to crush humanity's rebellion in one decisive battle, human strike teams emerged from the shadows across dozens of star systems simultaneously. Hyojin led Phoenix Squadron against the hegemony's primary shipyard at Kepler 442, over 400 light-years from Earth. The facility was massive, capable of building 50 warships at once. It was also completely undefended since no human ships were supposed to exist outside the solar system. Phoenix Wing, "Weapons free," she commanded as her squadron materialized from hyperspace. The shipyard's automated defenses came online, sending streams of plasma fire toward the human ships. But the weapons had been designed to fight conventional enemies, not ships equipped with architect technology. Phoenix One's shields absorbed the enemy fire and redirected it back at the shipyard's power core. The explosion lit up the system like a newborn star. In minutes, the hegemony's most important construction facility was reduced to glowing debris. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. Dr. Park Min-soo led a science team that captured an entire hegemony research station, along with decades of alien technology and military intelligence. Sora's engineering corps destroyed communication relays that connected the 12 alien species, cutting off their ability to coordinate responses. The attacks were precise, devastating, and completely unexpected. The aliens had spent 50 years believing humans were primitive creatures who could barely maintain their own technology. Now those same humans were striking at targets the hegemony thought were completely safe. On Earth, the alien armada found only empty cities and automated defenses. The major population centers had been quietly evacuated over the past 6 months. Their people relocated to hidden colonies using architect transportation technology. The few humans who remained were volunteers who stayed behind to spring the final trap. Admiral Vexitar landed his forces on a planet that should have held 3 billion desperate humans. Instead, he found ghost towns and empty factories. Even worse, his ships began disappearing one by one as hidden human weapons fired from concealed positions throughout the solar system. "We've been played," his tactical officer reported. "This entire system is a trap. The humans were never trying to defend Earth, they were using it as bait." The realization came too late. Half of the hegemony's fleet was already destroyed or disabled. The rest found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at once. Human ships appeared from hyperspace, struck with impossible weapons, and vanished before return fire could be coordinated. Taeho received reports from across the galaxy as his hidden fleet systematically dismantled 50 years of alien occupation. Military bases burned, supply lines collapsed, and panic spread through the 12 species as they realized the scope of humanity's revenge. "Status report," he requested from his communications officer. 17 major targets destroyed, Admiral. 8 more under attack, enemy casualties in the thousands, our losses 0. Taeho nodded, feeling a satisfaction he had not experienced since before the Great Subjugation. The hegemony had crushed humanity once by underestimating their determination. Now they were learning that a species with nothing left to lose was the most dangerous enemy of all. The fire of human revenge had been lit, and it would burn until every alien oppressor was driven from human space. The Phoenix Collective's war spread through hegemony space like wildfire consuming dry grass. Every day brought news of another alien base destroyed, another supply convoy vaporized, another fortress world evacuated in panic. The 12 species that had once ruled the galaxy now cowered behind their strongest defenses, afraid to venture into open space. Dr. Park Min-soo stood in the research lab aboard Phoenix Station, studying readouts that would have been impossible just months before. His team had achieved something that defied all known physics. They had learned to weaponize entire star systems using architect technology. "The calculations are complete," he reported to Admiral Taeho via secure transmission. "We can turn any star into a directed energy weapon. The power output would be unimaginable." Taeho studied the technical specifications floating on his command screen. The weapon they called Stellar Cascade could manipulate a star's fusion core, creating controlled solar flares that could be aimed across interstellar distances with pinpoint accuracy. A single blast could vaporize everything within a solar system. "Target selection?" he asked. "The Rigel garrison," Park replied. "The hegemony has concentrated their 7th fleet there. Over 200 ships hiding behind the strongest shields. They can build. They think they're safe." The Rigel system had been chosen by the aliens as their ultimate fortress. The star was stable, the planets were heavily fortified, and the space around it was filled with defense platforms and weapon satellites. It was where the hegemony planned to make their final stand against humanity's impossible rebellion. Captain Choi Hai-jin led the assault fleet that jumped into Rigel space. 20 human ships materialized around the system's edge, their black hulls invisible against the darkness. The alien defenders immediately opened fire, sending thousands of energy beams and missiles toward the human fleet. All ships evasive maneuvers, Hai-jin commanded. Maintain position for stellar cascade initiation. The human ships danced through the incoming fire like ghosts, their architect-enhanced engines allowing them to move in ways that seemed to violate the laws of physics. Enemy weapons passed harmlessly through spaces where the ships had been moments before. Admiral Krax, commander of the Hegemony 7th Fleet, watched his weapons miss their targets repeatedly. "How are they moving like that?" he demanded. "No ship can accelerate that fast without crushing its crew." His tactical officer studied the sensor readings with growing alarm. "Sir, they're not trying to attack us. They're positioning themselves around the star. I think they're targeting Rigel Prime itself." The realization hit Krax like a physical blow. The humans weren't planning to fight his fleet. They were planning to use the system's own star as a weapon. It was impossible, insane, and absolutely terrifying. "Stellar cascade charging," reported the weapon operator aboard Phoenix 1. The ship's hull began to glow as it channeled massive amounts of energy towards special transmitters aimed at Rigel Prime. Around the system, 19 other human ships did the same, creating a network of focused energy that reached into the star's burning heart. "Target Rigel Prime," Taeho announced over the fleet communication channel. "Cascade initiation in 60 seconds. The star itself became humanity's weapon. Deep within Rigel Prime's core, architect technology manipulated the fusion reaction that had burned steadily for billions of years. Magnetic fields shifted, plasma flows redirected, and the star's natural energy output focused into a single devastating beam. The Hegemony fleet had 60 seconds to realize what was happening. 60 seconds to understand that they faced an enemy who could command the very forces that powered the galaxy. 60 seconds to know that their fortress was about to become their tomb. "All ships, emergency jump!" Krax screamed into his communicator. "Abandon the system immediately!" But it was too late. Rigel Prime erupted in a directed solar flare that swept across the system like the hand of an angry god. The stellar plasma moved at nearly the speed of light, carrying the energy of a supernova focused into a beam barely 100 kilometers wide. The Hegemony 7th Fleet, 237 warships that had taken decades to build, simply ceased to exist, vaporized in seconds by fire stolen from the heart of a star. The defense platforms melted like ice in a furnace. The fortified planets were stripped of their atmospheres and left as glowing, lifeless rocks. Across the galaxy, the remaining alien species watched in horror as their most powerful fleet was eliminated without the humans firing a single conventional weapon. The message was clear. Humanity had moved beyond ship-to-ship combat. They now commanded forces that could erase entire civilizations. Lee Sora established forward bases in systems the Hegemony had thought unreachable, using architect transportation technology to move equipment and personnel across impossible distances. Each new base extended humanity's reach deeper into alien space, creating supply lines that couldn't be cut and strongholds that couldn't be found. "We're not just fighting a war anymore," she told her engineering teams as they constructed another, hidden facility. "We're reclaiming our birthright among the stars. Every system we take, every world we liberate, brings us closer to becoming what we were always meant to be." The 12 species of the Hegemony began to fracture as panic spread through their governments. Some called for total war against humanity, demanding that every alien ship converge on human space for one final battle. Others argued for immediate surrender, believing that resistance would only bring stellar fire down upon their home worlds. But Taeho had already made the decision for them. Humanity would accept nothing less than complete victory. The species that had once been prey had become the ultimate predators, and their fire burned hotter than any star in the galaxy. The surrender came on a cold morning in December, exactly 51 years after the Great Subjugation began. High Chancellor Mordek of the Hegemony Council stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the human fleet that surrounded his ship like predators circling wounded prey. His once proud armada had been reduced to a handful of vessels, their crews terrified and demoralized. "Send the transmission," he ordered his communications officer, his voice heavy with defeat. "Tell the humans we accept their terms." Admiral Tejo received the alien surrender aboard Phoenix 1 while orbiting New Sol, humanity's first major colony beyond the solar system. The planet below glowed with the lights of 1,000,000 human settlers who had never lived under alien rule. Children who had been born free, who would grow up knowing that humanity belonged among the stars. The surrender. Terms were harsh but fair. Complete withdrawal from all human-claimed space. Recognition of human sovereignty over former architect territories. Reparations for 50 years of slavery and oppression. Most importantly, a promise that no alien species would ever again try to limit humanity's expansion into the galaxy. "Your species learns quickly," Mordek admitted when he met Taiho face-to-face in the neutral zone between their fleets. The alien leader was tall and thin, with gray skin and eyes that had seen too much defeat. "We underestimated your resilience and your capacity for growth." "You underestimated our refusal to stay down," Taiho replied calmly. "Humanity doesn't just survive. We adapt, we overcome, and we emerge stronger than before. You broke us once, but you gave us the motivation to become something greater." Dr. Park Min-soo established the Human Stellar Republic's first research academy on Kepler 442, built on the ruins of the hegemony's greatest shipyard. Students came from across human space to study architect technology and push the boundaries of science even further. Some were aliens who had chosen to work with humanity rather than against it, recognizing that cooperation was better than conquest. "The architects left us more than weapons," Park told his first class of graduate students. "They left us the tools to become explorers, builders, and guardians of knowledge. We must use these gifts wisely, not just for war, but for peace and discovery." Captain Choi Hee-jin, now Marshal of the Republican Fleet, oversaw the establishment of human colonies across dozens of systems. Each world that accepted human settlement became a beacon of freedom for species that had suffered under hegemony. Rule. Former slaves became citizens, former enemies became allies, and the galaxy slowly healed from centuries of oppression. The transformation was remarkable. Worlds that had been strip-mined for alien profit were restored to their natural beauty. Species that had been forced into labor camps were given their own territories to govern. The 12 races of the former hegemony found themselves living in a galaxy where strength was measured not by the ability to conquer, but by the willingness to cooperate. Lee Sora stood in the observation deck of Architect Station 1, humanity's greatest discovery at the edge of known space. The massive facility had been hidden for millions of years, waiting for the right species to find it. Inside its crystal chambers, the last secrets of the vanished race revealed themselves to human explorers. "They knew," she said to Tejo as he joined her at the great window that looked out into the void between galaxies. "The architects knew that someday their technology would be needed by a younger race. They left it all for us." The station's central chamber displayed a star map showing pathways to the galactic core, where ancient mysteries waited to be explored. Massive structures that defied understanding. Energy sources that could power entire civilizations for millions of years. Secrets that would take humanity centuries to fully comprehend. "The first exploration ships are ready," Hye-jin reported over the communication system. "Phoenix Explorer and her sister ships are prepared for the journey to the galactic center. Estimated travel time, 18 months. Tejo nodded, feeling a mixture of pride and anticipation. The ships preparing to launch were nothing like the crude vessels humanity had built during the war. These were exploration vessels designed for discovery, not destruction. They carried scientists and diplomats instead of soldiers, equipped with tools for learning rather than weapons for killing. 50 years ago, they told us we would never leave our solar system," he said to Sora. "They said humans were too primitive, too violent, too limited to deserve a place among the stars. And now look at us," Sora replied, gesturing toward the fleet of exploration ships gathering near the station. "We're about to explore regions of space that even the architects only dreamed of reaching." The galaxy had changed in ways that no one could have predicted. The species that had once been considered the most dangerous, humanity, had become the most trusted. Human colonies served as neutral ground for diplomatic meetings. Human scientists shared their discoveries freely with all races. Human explorers opened new trade routes that benefited everyone. As Phoenix Explorer activated its revolutionary architect-enhanced engines and began the long journey toward the galactic core, Tejo reflected on how far his species had come. They had risen from the ashes of defeat to become masters of ancient fire. Their light would illuminate the galaxy for generations to come, and the stars themselves would remember the day when humanity refused to accept defeat. The greatest adventure was just beginning.